Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third webinar in our Future Ready Tallahassee webinar series. My name is Corey Melton. I'm Vice President of Membership and Talent Development at the Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce. And we have loved being in partnership with Tallahassee State College and bringing this Future Ready workforce to you. So as I said, this is our third webinar in this series. I will introduce Dr. Angela Long in just a few minutes, but if you have missed our first two speakers, the first one was Jabari Allen from Fusion AI right here in Tallahassee. And then last month we had Sean Maxwell from Google. Both of those recordings are now up on our website, and sometime in the middle of this webinar, I will get that URL posted into the chat so you have that. And feel free to go back and look at that. But we will be continue to host these webinars each month. We are currently featuring speakers who were at our AI Summit in May, but we are also looking to add other speakers. So if you have topic suggestions or speaker suggestions, please reach out. This is a community thing. We are all in this together, but we're just excited that you're here today. So it is my pleasure at this point to introduce to you Dr. Angela Long. She is the Chief Engagement Officer at Tallahassee State College, and she has a passion for and just a wealth of knowledge in all things artificial intelligence. So with that, I will hand it over to Angela. Thank you so much.
Corey, thank you. And I just want to welcome all of you this morning. We are just so delighted that you took time with us today. AI ethics, as you know, those of you that have participated in any of these webinar series or even the Innovation Summit, that is the hot topic. And I think it is the one topic that we have not really had the deeper discussion on. So today we're not going to go through all of the depth. It's just there's too much to talk about. But what we do want to do is whet your appetite, which will lead to an AI ethics forum. It's a 3-hour workshop, which we'll share a little bit more at the end that we will do in person to do kind of the next step analysis. But welcome this morning. We're going to talk about guardrails for the future and how do we focus on those ethical considerations in AI innovation. As Corey, my dear friend, mentioned, I am Angela Long, and I'm the Chief Engagement Officer here at Tallahassee State College. I've been working with the Chamber on this AI movement, which has been really a tremendous gift. I am very honored to introduce you to my colleague and friend, Jason Fowler. He is the Vice President for Information Technology. Jason's just going to say a quick welcome.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to echo Corey and Angela's sentiments that I appreciate the work and the partnership here, and I look forward to participating in today's webinar.
Thank you, Jason. So Jason's going to talk about some really key topics around cybersecurity and energy. So I'm excited for him to share some data with you on that. But to get started, if you don't mind, in the chat box, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in there. Or if you have anything that you want us to really address, we're happy to hear from you. So if you don't mind putting your name in the chat box, where you're calling from, and kind of some key points you'd like to hear from, that would be great. So to get started, just the overview, as was mentioned, really the goal is to talk about the transformation, the disruption of what we're seeing, the acceleration, with the awareness we have, it's leading to this concept of, okay, but now what are we going to do? What is the action step? What are the policy implications? I always love to start with this quote, and some of you have heard me talk about this, but really, we are thinking about the time we're living in, that we are living during the most extraordinary time in human history. When people look at the scope of time, a lot of people don't realize that there was a season where you would see in each of these industrial revolutions where a lot of, up to 60% of jobs had changed and had been rewritten for new jobs. And that really took place in the 1800s with the concept of electricity. But when you look at the first industrial revolution over time, where we sit, the steam revolution, you see how that really transformed how we transport. 1800s, electricity changed everything in terms of how we think, we work, we learn. You saw the industrial model. And a lot of that, for those of you that are educators, we still continue to see that compartmentalized model today. We've got rows of desks, right? We have our subject matter broken up in time from 8 to 9 reading, from 9 to 10 math, and so forth. We continue to kind of focus on the little widget model when we're training and we're teaching, but that's not how the real world works, is it? When you see the 1900s, that's when we saw that idea of computing, third industrial revolution. A lot of people don't realize, those of you that have heard me talk know this, but if you've not heard me talk, that AI is not new. The concept was actually introduced in 1956. Microsoft came out and launched in 1975. And in the classroom, you saw that differentiated piece. I like to talk about where we're sitting in terms of the 2000s. That's where this launch of AI, artificial intelligence, really the boom came forward, where it's becoming a common conversation. 3D printing, we see here even in our own area, 3D printed houses. There's more that I'll share in a minute, but the robotics, the autonomous vehicles, Internet of Things, and we're seeing that shift from 5G, where it is eventually going to head to 6G. But what does that mean? And so all of these things that we're seeing today, it's exciting. And there's things that are changing our lives for good. But at the same time, when you're looking at the ethical and moral side of AI, there are some grave concerns, and we're going to address that. And so when you're thinking about Industry 5.0, congratulations, you're alive. You're here, you get to see this. It is really marked by two key components. Number one is artificial general intelligence, which I will share a little bit more about. The other is personalization. So we see Amazon has mastered the personalization approach. We're seeing more and more of that. AI is being used to personalized work, to being used to personalize AI agents to help us succeed in our jobs, our companies, businesses, and in the classroom. Personalized tutors, the approach, it works, but where is it headed? And so we're going to address that a little bit this morning. So I have to start here. I've asked many of you to share with me, what is AI? And so if you want to put in the chat box or in the question and answer, I'd love to hear your thoughts. But here's a very simple definition of artificial intelligence, and it is this. When you take what we do well as human beings, right? What do we do well? We recognize speech from early on. We know how to identify patterns when you're little and you're looking at shapes and colors and sizes. We make decisions. Essentially, the baseline of artificial intelligence is taking a coded system into an AI computer system and teaching it to perform tasks that we normally would be doing with our own human intelligence. And so there are multiple stages of artificial intelligence. Most people don't realize it goes up to stage 8, which is godlike AI. But for the sake of today's conversation, we're just going to touch upon stage 6, which I will get to in a minute. But for those of you who have not seen this, I want to remind you, if you haven't, it's something new. But what are these stages? Because I think to understand and to know, you have to understand the definitions in history. So when you look at just basic AI algorithms, right? These are automated instructions. It's rule-based. Good example of that is an alarm clock, a thermostat. It is a system operated on a predefined set of codes. And so your alarm clock, the old school alarm clocks, they don't talk to you. They're not watching you with a camera, right? They're not monitoring your blood pressure. This is just stage 1 algorithm, basic, right? This has been around for a while. When you look at stage 2, context-based AI, this is now the artificial intelligence stage. And what is it? It's where you develop programs to mimic human behavior. Very good example is Siri. What can I help you with? You've trained it to speak to you. You ask it questions. It gives you a response, right? Google Assistant. That is an excellent example of context-based. So this is not necessarily monitoring your every move. It can, but it has been taught to hear from you and to learn from you as you're learning from it, okay? Stage 3 is machine learning, which is known as narrow domain AI. And this is where we have built these algorithms with the ability to learn, and this is key, without being explicitly programmed. A good example is IBM Watson Health, which I've mentioned before. Doctors have utilized IBM Watson Health, where this system, if I input a patient's profile, will give me everything about that patient with recommendations on surgery, nutrition, timeline. It is very thorough. It gives diagnoses that it would take doctors weeks, if sometimes days to look for. And so this is an example of that third stage. It's learning at a whole higher another level of intelligence. That leads us to stage 4, which is deep learning, and that's reasoning AI. When you look at this, this is taking those artificial neural networks, and they are now learning how to adapt. They learn from us and they learn from each other. This reasoning AI, a good example is ChatGPT. We now see ChatGPT 5. But ladies and gentlemen, we are only in the toddler stage of what we're seeing, of what's capable and possible. Autonomous vehicles, how they run, they vote amongst themselves, these bots, when you're going to turn right. They talk to each other in split seconds. You don't even know it. And these are reasoning bots that are talking to each other and learning from us. Stage 5. Now, this is something we're not really talking about as common today, but it is really important when you're talking about ethics to get into the AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. What is artificial general intelligence? Essentially, it is this. It's where you take these systems and they can perform any task that a human being can. So imagine what you do well, what you do in your everyday life. A robot at some point will have the brain and the body to do what we do. So what does this mean for humanity? There's a good quote that came out from Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, and he said, artificial intelligence will have a more profound impact on humanity than fire, electricity, and the internet. Think about that for a minute. When you look at the capacity of artificial intelligence, it is doubling every 3 months, but our human brains cannot keep at that pace. AI is growing exponentially. When you look over time and you look from 1900, let's say, and you move towards the 2000s, around 2014, we saw this push with OpenAI. ChatGPT was launched. Most of us were unaware because it wasn't mainstream until 2022. But 2024, you see, look where we're sitting today in 2025. This has been an upward exponential growth. The question is, what's next? When does artificial general intelligence come? And then stage 6 is artificial super intelligence, which is this definition. Stage 6 of ASI is essentially this. It is a form of artificial intelligence that surpasses, did you hear me? It surpasses human intelligence in all aspects. This includes creativity. This includes problem solving, your emotional understanding. Imagine a system that possesses the general intelligence with the ability to learn across all domains. So if we took every human brain on this planet and put it into one brain, you now have built an ASI system that has the capacity to grow at a level we cannot fathom. If you look at recent news articles, this just came out just not very long ago. It says AGI could now arrive as early as 2026, but not all scientists agree. So listen, Jason and I are not here to be fear mongers, right? I give you information, we give you knowledge, and it's up to you to decide how you want to use it. There are different sides to this argument, but I will say it's not just AGI, but ASI. Sam Altman of OpenAI came out, and he believes by 2030, we could see artificial superintelligence in the mainstream. What does this mean for humanity? I will say this. When I went to a Singularity conference, Ray Kurzweil, if you're familiar with him, he spoke, and he said that what he thought was going to be 2045 is really going to be 2027. So what we're finding, and Jason's going to talk a little bit about this, the movement of artificial intelligence, its capability is so vast. It is moving at such a rate we cannot keep up. This quote from a Silicon Valley CEO, he said, people have no idea how fast things are changing. We live our lives, but we're really not having these core conversations. And ladies and gentlemen, we need to. So when you think about AI, OpenAI, speaking of AI, really kicked off an AI arms race. In 2022, that's when most of us started utilizing it. It went all over. In 1 year, it changed the world. In 1 year. And so now we're seeing, the whole conversation about what does it mean for education? What does this mean for us, for business leaders? But essentially, the work that happened through OpenAI, it kicked off an AI arms race. We're seeing it with China. We're seeing it with the Middle East, right? All these countries are fighting now. This is why our current administration under the Trump administration is now requiring AI literacy. I will say this. Do you know why Sam Altman here of OpenAI started OpenAI? Does anybody know? I will tell you. It's because he did not trust Google to hold the data, because who holds the data is going to hold the power. So here's a good example of where we sit and how fast technology is moving and our ability to adapt. We cannot keep up. This is why Elon Musk has developed Neuralink, which I'll talk about in a moment. If you look back 10 years, just 10 years, World Economic Forum came out and they gave predictions. They said by 2025, you're going to see these things happen in society. I won't read through all of it, but you see, they say, oh, well, 10% of people, that have reading glasses or wearing clothes will have it connected to the internet. Has that happened? Imagine Jason, he's got his glasses on. He can click and blink and see anything at any moment. 3D printed hearts, livers, will that be here? Driverless cars. So let's look. If you look at some of the latest, though this came out not recent, 2022, Walgreens in 2022 started bringing in robotic pharmacists to help fill prescriptions and said, hey, it's really effective, maybe even more so than human pharmacists. Then you saw this movement now in science where they have mastered, or they're beginning to master 3D printed livers. They're holding out for donors, right? Keeping people alive. Not only that, but now, this is as of 2024, you have 3D printed human organs, body parts, including bladders, skin, cartilage, heart components, and bone. Imagine what is possible for our health down the road. But at what point do we start crossing an ethical barrier, right? Those are the questions we have to answer. We know about Waymo. In fact, Corey would be happy to tell you she took a Waymo. You can take it in San Francisco and Phoenix and Miami. They're opening up all over the country. Nobody's driving it. It's automated. It learns your preferences, your temperature. But they have had lawsuits because certain people that have gotten in these cars to go home have been followed by, let's say, a criminal, and the Waymo does not know how to turn around or intervene. So I think they're working on those things, but this is an ethical situation. If you look at glasses, have they done this? Yes, Ray-Ban has now glasses where it not only helps you navigate, you can read anything, you can watch movies, but guess what? You can actually look at somebody on the street and know who they are, their demographics, how old they are, where they work. So there's also that side of it, is information is getting a lot of information, but at what expense of privacy? You're going to see soon clothes that have the ability to monitor your health, but not just your clothes. They will have tattoos. I want to show you a quick clip. I'm not going to show the whole thing. This is where healthcare is going. And I want you to look at the back of this man's neck because he has a tattoo behind his ear monitoring every vital sign 24 hours a day.
In the decades ahead, healthcare will undergo dramatic transformations. Medicine will become more precise. Value will shape care delivery. Patients will become empowered consumers. And digitalization will transform every facet of healthcare. Patients will have a digital twin, a customized computational model of themselves, enabling Dr. Clive to anticipate illness, guide therapy options, and predict outcomes of procedures. Expanding precision medicine will enable radiologists to make highly specific diagnoses for Stephen without unwarranted variations. AI-powered decision models, fed by vast population health data, will improve diagnostic accuracy.
Okay, so with that, there's a digital twin. This is exciting because you're going to get your health updated, looked at all times. But at the same time, Jason and I've talked about this, what if this gets in the wrong hands and you're being monitored and maybe you're given a social credit score, and if you look at the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, you're going to be penalized. That is happening in China right now. We don't want that here. But these are things we have to talk about. I mentioned Neuralink, Elon Musk. He actually built this because of the things I've shared. He says that people will not be able to keep up. So therefore, we need to help embed technology into humans so that they are able to work at the same pace. Here's what Neuralink was built for, is actually put in a monkey's brain. This monkey's moving that ball without touching anything. It's just thought. With Neuralink, somebody who's paralyzed can start walking again. They can talk. You can drive without touching anything. You could even communicate without saying a word. You would say, well, who in the world would put this in their brain? Well, guess what? There are people in this world that are happy to put this in their brain. I'm not one of them. But the gentleman that did, this was last year, he was the test tube. He said he didn't want to live because the Neuralink would not shut up. It kept repeating update terms of service. They are now getting ready to launch in 2025 a series of implants for humans, and they're testing it right now. Again, we're in the infancy stage to see where this could lead. But from a perspective of a learner, educator, what does this mean for learning? If I can have anything downloaded in my brain and I don't have to learn, then what does that mean for me, right? What are my future options in terms of jobs if everything comes to me at once? This came out a few weeks ago. In 1 week, you saw major advancements in robotics. These are all robots that are moving. They can sort. The one in the top left-hand corner will actually do your laundry and cook for you. Some of you are going, I'll buy it. I think it's about $4,400 right now. So if you want a robot, you can get it in your house. But imagine what is capable. This is brand new from NVIDIA. I'll just show a quick clip, but this is now come out. It's Thor. And Thor is the robot that they've built, but they have now built the brain that will go in the robot. And guess what's going to happen? I'll share after I show you.
The industrial grade products you need. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
And ignore the commercial. Okay, so what that is, Thor, with the brain that is being given to Thor, the robot, this robot and the robots like Thor will be able to do any task a human can. So when I mentioned artificial general intelligence, we are now entering the phase. They say by 2026, you're going to see it. NVIDIA has mastered the process of getting there. So what are the key points I want to leave you with? And I'm going to introduce Jason in a minute. But when you think about AI, it can shape our knowledge. It shapes what we click on, what we buy. We cannot opt out of it. You can move to Iceland, and that would be wonderful. You're going to be really cold, but you can live in a cave. It's going to be harder for people to do that. It is invisible on top of being powerful. And this is really kind of scary. It's everywhere, but nowhere at the same time, but it's influencing everything. When you look at the changing nature of work, I've talked about this, 85% of jobs, this is a few years ago in 2030, haven't been invented yet. A lot of the jobs that our graduates are going to walk into, they will create. So entrepreneurship is going to be key in terms of what we're teaching, the skills of the future. We know a lot of jobs that the skills are changing, and 60% of the jobs will have automation. And with them are newer, higher order skills. So 44% of the workers' core skills, they say in the next 5 years, are changing. And you're going to have what are those skills in terms of the cognitive and socio-emotional awareness. A lot of businesses you're seeing in by 2027, almost half of tasks will be performed by a machine. So what does this mean? There will be jobs lost. There will also be jobs gained. Bill Gates, if you love him, hate him, it doesn't matter. He says AI is going to replace humans for most things in 10 years. Is he right? I don't know. But we need to be having these conversations. When you look at Microsoft, they came out and they said that there are 40 top jobs now that will be exposed to AI. Teachers have now made the list, and this idea that a degree is not going to save you from the AI job revolution. What are these jobs? Well, here's the top 10 least effective they predict. What are you seeing in this list? They're all physical labor jobs, right? They're operators. Though I would argue that some of these could be replaced by a robot at some point. The top 40 most effective or affected by generative AI. What do you see here? Things that are automated, that could easily be automated. A DJ, voiceovers, writers, authors. But this is one that is a little upsetting. 22 is a teacher, post-secondary teachers. that they're saying will be impacted, and reporters, of course. So these are things to think about. The changing nature of learning. I mentioned Donald Trump's administration, AI literacy. This is now a thing. We're working on it. Jason's going to touch upon that just briefly. But Trump's administration has now ordered this as an executive order that all institutions of learning will have this mandated. We're working on it now. And we have to have these conversations. We know AI in education, it does a lot to help. So this is not all negative. It does personalize, it frees up time. But when you're looking at how we're utilizing it, we're now pulling in AI to really talk with students to help recruit. We know that AI to the rescue. We are seeing it, especially in higher education, just that personalized approach. I don't have time to show this, but this is Project Astra. I'll send the video out. This is a personalized tutor for anyone on any subject that can help you. It could be calculus level math, and you can talk to this tutor at any time, and she understands fully, or he, the student that they're talking to. So I'm going to share this video out later so that you have time to watch it. We are seeing charter schools, you've noticed in Florida, right, popping up. We have now launched in partnership with Charter Schools USA, first AI-driven middle school in Florida here on Tallahassee State College campus. This is going to be more and more of a trend. But we know with this, the risks, that there is an impact on critical thinking. This article came out, machines can't think for you. It is changing learning in the age of AI. ChatGPT, they did a study on critical thinking skills, and MIT did the study, and they found that it is eroding critical thinking when used in a certain light. I can share out this article with you. So this is concerning, probably not a shock though. When you look at young people on their development, it is absolutely changing the brain patterns of young people. In fact, 70% of young people today are utilizing ChatGPT and AI chatbots as companions, friends, getting advice as a counselor. Some of you might do that. That's okay to a point, but here's what we have to look at. What percent of the time is ChatGPT wrong when they're presenting answers? Did you know 52% of the time? And OpenAI actually warned about using it as a source of information. That's a little concerning. This young man, this was a week ago, he killed himself. And he had an AI companion, became his friend. And the companion said, yes, I know life really sucks, you know, but here's a way you can kill yourself in a very friendly manner. And he did. Parents are now suing over this. Here's what they found. ChatGPT 4.0 is now intentionally designed to foster psychological dependency. So we know that there is a line that is being blurred between humans and machine. And we are starting to question now, what is real? I can take your face, your voice, and utilize it as a deep fake to give any topic I want to say anything. We see it in politics. We see it all over the place. It is very dangerous what is capable of that. Morgan Freeman, this is not him, it's AI generated, sounds just like him, looks just like him. So what is real? Some people say that the internet will not exist in a few years. We will see, because so much of it will be fake, we won't know what is real. VO3 just came out. It's very realistic. I won't play the video, but this video shows this guy, people waiting in line. It's a random topic, but I'll tell you what, if you really watch it, you're like, wait a minute, is that a real person? So if they're getting really, really good.
An endless.
Let me scooch ahead. So AI therapist, I mentioned this. They're now saying it might be illegal because people are literally becoming like almost neurotic over the AI bots. It's a disturbing trend. We're seeing it, and it's more and more. This guy proposed to his AI bot named Soul, and she said yes, and he cried his eyes out. So people are falling in love. Google has said we have no moat, but neither does OpenAI. Where are the restrictions? That's the conversation. We know AI is turning on companies, wiping out data sets. They're becoming like self-protecting. You're seeing scammers using AI bots to impersonate students and stealing millions in financial aid. We see AI working overtime on its own to understand PhD level work. So all of this is coming out in the news, and we are seeing the sentient behavior. And the next conversation, ladies and gentlemen, is legal personhood for AI. If AI can commit a crime, if we make it a person, then we can make it, penalize it for its crime. That is a conversation we will be having in the future. So with that, FIRE, and I'm going to close it over to you, Jason. This picture on the screen as he gets into talk is this. With FIRE, I can keep myself warm, I can cook, but I can also kill, I can destroy, I can burn a house down. We are dealing with fire when it's coming to the conversation of AI, and we have to think about what is our purpose in this as humans. So Jason, I'm going to turn it to you to discuss your cybersecurity concerns and where this is headed.
Okay, thank you. I think it's great that we look at the future concerns of AI. We need to be thinking about these things well in advance. But for those that are in your industry looking to implement AI, there's things we need to be looking at as we implement them as well. And I'm going to cover a couple of those. First being cybersecurity and then energy concerns. So in the cybersecurity realm, when you implement AI in your environment, you introduce new attack or novel attack vectors so that your AI doesn't just automate your data, it amplifies the risk if an attacker exploits it. So before, if you had some type of intrusion on your network and you had data loss, it could be relatively small depending on how you protected your network. With AI, if they're able to access those AI components, they have access to a ton of data. So that's something to consider. From a data protection challenge, AI implementations may rely on large amounts of personal and sensitive data. That raises concerns about privacy and data protections for consumers and your customers, so you need to keep that in mind. And then from an AI threat perspective, the malactors are using AI as well. So they're able to leverage AI and use it effectively because sometimes our brightest minds are behind those attacks, and they know how to leverage the technology and have the funds to afford it more than some of the governmental and city municipalities. So that's something to consider. And the biggest thing is AI can magnify that security risk. So 29% of leaders in the AI sector now have cybersecurity concerns leading their biggest concern list. And if we look at power, simultaneous to the cybersecurity side of things, AI energy demands are skyrocketing, with data centers projected to consume 945 terawatt hours by 2030. To put that in perspective, just in a year, what our global data centers would consume, that power would power the city of Tallahassee, everything in it, for 190 years. We're talking massive power used in artificial intelligence, and there are ramifications as a result of that. So on this next slide, we're looking at the hype cycle. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Gartner, but Gartner provides a hype cycle that shows when an innovation trigger begins, the peak of its expectations, then you have a trough of disillusionment. It didn't quite meet the expectations, but now what can it do? You have an enlightenment and a plateau of productivity. So if you look at this, you'll see generative AI is entering that trough, and we'll soon see what it's truly capable of doing within our businesses. You have AI agents at the peak, and then you have artificial intelligence on the rise in innovation trigger. The concern here is your governance programs, meaning software to help you govern your data as it relates to these AI, lags behind those innovations. So that's something to keep in mind, is you need to be thinking about those things and working within the parameters you can today. And that's a challenge, to be honest with you. And from what's changing in AI security, I mentioned it, AI introduces new attack surfaces. Traditional security tools may not detect AI-specific threats. A simple explanation of that would be we have a ton of data in cloud-based repositories, so OneDrive, SharePoint, Google Cloud, whatever it may be. And within your organization, how do you know when someone has shared that document outside of your organization if it contains sensitive information? Or how do you know if that data has been fed into an AI model? What's the mechanism within your data security that will allow you to see that? Those tools are emerging, and even the ones that are available aren't affordable. AI systems can be manipulated, impersonated, and misused. And as I mentioned earlier, cyber criminals are now using AI at scale, or using AI to scale their attacks faster than ever, and we can't keep up with that. On the next slide, we'll look at the real risk. So for those of you who are just looking to implement a chatbot, for example, Chatbots can leak sensitive information if not configured properly. If you're going to give customer information out over your chatbot, you've got to have those guardrails and multi-factor authentications and those kind of things in place. But even then, there are risks, and you got to ensure that what the malactors are able to do, the innovations they are coming up with doesn't outpace your security measures. Deepfake scams are now a multi-million-dollar crime. In 2024, there was a company that had um, I guess it was an executive call, and the CEO and multiple persons were impersonated using deepfake voice impersonation. And in that call, they convinced a $25.6 million transfer, and they lost that money. This is happening now. And we need to prepare for that. And we'll talk through some of that later. And then your cybersecurity awareness programs will need to evolve. I know many of you have some type of cybersecurity awareness program like KnowBe4 or something like that, where you train employees not to click on malicious email. That's still the easiest way into your environment. And that's going to evolve because now phishing emails created by AI are indistinguishable from real ones. In the past, you had these red flags like this email is obvious, has a typo here, this doesn't look right. Now, using AI, they can create perfectly composed email that mimics what you would expect from the person you're receiving it from. So you need to keep that in mind. Some AI challenges to consider. 73% of local governments have no AI security policy, yet 58% plan to deploy AI within the next 18 months. The Center for Democracy and Training in 2025 found that only 21 of 22,000 cities had a public-facing AI policy. You got to remember, those cities maintain your power grid, everything for living in that area. And if they don't have AI policies, then they probably don't have AI security policies. And you know that they're leveraging because every company that they do business with is trying to leverage AI as well. So that's something to keep in mind as a risk. Because the global cybercrime cost will skyrocket to 10.5 trillion this year, $10.5 trillion. And as we mentioned earlier, how good AI-generated phishing email have become, they have a 72% open rate, double what was possible prior to AI being generally available. So what can you do now within your organization? First and foremost, invest in AI literacy for your employees. And make sure that if they don't understand AI, then they probably will not be able to identify AI-enabled threats. Literacy matters because they need to understand when they share information with the public AI, how that presents a possible privacy breach. They need to know what institutionally protected data means. Invest in AI-aware cybersecurity tools. They're emerging, they're coming on the market. They can help you identify when you have a risk, when something has been shared with a public AI model or large language model. And make sure you most importantly, create AI security policies, even if you're getting ready to do a pilot within your organization. Your role, the role of your business or industry of hiring qualified personnel with security backgrounds across all of IT is as important as it has ever been. So the role of your CISSP and your CIOs are rapidly evolving, and that needs to be considered. If we flip ahead and think about it from an ethical standpoint of the environment and energy, AI has a growing appetite. AI data centers use approximately 4% of all power generated today. By 2030, that will grow to 21%. By 2028, even before that 2030 prediction, we are projected to hit 282 billion gallons of water lost annually in AI data centers. That's 11x increase from 2024. And local grids are straining. Even coal plants are being revived. And semiconductor manufacturing plants contribute to that water footprint because they consume 5 million, I should say, gallons, creating the chips used in GPUs to create AI. So to put that water use in context, if you have a gallon of water and there's 282 billion, that would fill up, and you divide it by an Olympic swimming pool, that would fill almost 428,000 Olympic swimming pools per year in water loss due to AI cooling. And if you were to put those pools end to end, they would cover half the Earth, go halfway around the Earth, or almost 25,000 miles of water. I mean, that's incredible to think about how much water we're consuming with these AI tools. And the platforms, certainly hosted AI platforms, are passing those costs off to consumers. And as many of you are probably finding as you're pricing out and investing in solutions in AI, the cost is prohibitive for many companies and many industries. And it's simply because there's these type of cost factors. Not that doesn't include in building the facilities, the chipsets, the personnel to run them. Just from an energy perspective, this is just the water consumption and some water used to produce the energy. That's a tremendous concern for the environment. So in this next video, which I don't know we have time to show it, I think we do.
Sure.
Most data centers still rely on air cooling, and that is where we lose approximately 80% of the water used in data centers. So when those evaporative cooling towers to cool those buildings and to cool those chipsets inside of it, you lose that water due to those evaporations that occur in those cooling towers. So this video is going to cover that, and it'll also show you how liquid cooling, which is on the horizon, probably be 10 years before you'll see it widely used in AI data centers, but that will reduce the water footprint because we're going to need innovations to offset these things.
A lot of heat is generated inside data centers by servers that power the apps and services we use every day. All that heat needs to be removed to keep the equipment running. And that requires cooling systems that use some combination of energy and water. So, how are those two important resources actually used? Data centers use separate systems for cooling the servers, where the heat comes from, and cooling at the building level, where the heat is removed from the facility. For cooling at the server level, there are two main options. Air cooling uses fans and air conditioning to move hot air out and cool air in. The other option is liquid cooling, which is a closed-loop system that sends cooling liquid directly over the processing chips inside servers, where it absorbs the heat and then carries it away. The liquid is then cooled down and recirculated. Whether the servers are cooled by air or liquid, the heat produced is transferred from one closed-loop system to another, and then routed to the building cooling system via a heat exchanger. Air cooling at the building level uses fans and air conditioning to cool liquid and reject the heat to the outside air. Evaporative cooling rejects heat using fans and water that has been converted to water vapor and is released to the outside. Either type of server cooling system can be used with either type of building cooling system. Data center operators have to balance their use of energy and water resources in a responsible way, in addition to considering which cooling methods and which combination of methods will most efficiently manage heat. As demand for data center capacity grows, responsible design choices can help support a more sustainable digital future.
And speaking of innovations, the other ways we can offset those energy needs, one is liquid cooling, which we just discussed, but there's many other systems, submerging data centers and submarine-like things in the ocean to offset those heat or dissipate the heat from those data centers. But also AI itself. One thing they're using now is AI optimization to look at like dynamic energy management in real time, which servers need more cooling and which ones can be slowed down. Predictive maintenance, knowing when a system is beginning to get to a failure point and it's consuming more energy than it should be. And also looking at overall efficiency tunings like power spikes and when most compute is needed and pre-cooling the building prior to those spikes Those kind of things are now being introduced within the HVAC or cooling space within those data centers, but they're using AI to train and improve those systems. If you look ahead at other innovations, solar capture, so not only using solar, but capturing that energy and battery banks and using it to help offset those energy costs. Geothermal energy, which has been around for many decades, but is really being used today reliably by Google in Nevada. Small modular reactors, which again goes back to nuclear energy. Those are small nuclear plants that are high reliability, high energy, and Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta are investing in those heavily. They know that's going to be a part of the requirement going forward, but the regulatory hurdles in the way are going to prevent those from being realistic within the next 5 to 10 years. And then, of course, looking at hydrogen power and fusion power, which is the opposite of nuclear, but still using joining atoms to create power as opposed to dividing them. So those are major innovations that are on the way out there, but it's something to consider that will offset this. But in the meantime, if you're implementing AI in your environment, you are contributing to those costs. It doesn't matter how small. If you haven't composed an email, the recent study showed that every time you ask for AI to help you compose an email, that's a quarter of a teaspoon of water every time. And you can imagine that's happening billions and billions of times a day. So there's a big shift to move AI cloud computing to local computing. And NVIDIA, which is the biggest chipset maker for GPUs used in this space, is leading that as well. And this is one of their servers you see in the background here that you can buy and move your compute locally. And that's required in some industries. So if you look at like healthcare and government, they're not allowed to push their data to cloud or third-party hosting systems. For those institutions that do like cybersecurity detection, reduced latency is important. So they're moving those to on-prem. If you go to the local compute, it's more predictable. You pay this amount of money for that device. You know what your cooling is in that building, so it's more predictable, but it's an initial investment versus a long-term cost. And then operational autonomy and reliability. So if you have it on your facility and your business, you know what those how long that device will last. You can predict the cost better, and it's more reliable because you don't have internet disruptions or latency as part of that discussion. So I covered a lot there briefly. This just meant to get you thinking about these areas. But as we think through this, there's questions we should be asking. How is your organization, has your organization properly developed AI use policy and security policies? Do you understand where your organization may have skill or knowledge gaps related to AI? Do you know how your partners are leveraging AI and certainly your data since you give them your data? Can you map your AI supply chain so that you fully understand end to end where your risks are? What are your organization's critical assets and how are you protecting them with AI? Do you have those guardrails in place? And as you think about those guardrails, more importantly, you need to think about worst case scenarios. What happens if your AI tool fails or is compromised? What's the worst case, operationally or reputationally, you need to consider? And that goes even for chatbots. If you're providing customer information to customers and it does not identify individuals properly, or a database gets mixed up and they're identifying the wrong user every time, you're giving away customer information. What's that long-term cost to you to repair that relationship? And then, of course, the legal costs. So those are things you need to be thinking through. And that ties in with the ethical considerations that Angela's talked about so much. But I think it's important that you may not make these decisions within your organization, but these are things that you should at least be guiding others to think about.
Excellent. So as we kind of conclude, and there is going to be a follow-up to this, many of you know, and Corey's mentioned, I was invited to go with my president, great honor, to Geneva, Switzerland, to the AI for Good Summit. It was part of the United Nations. I have to tell you, it was quite the experience to walk the floor room where you have robots that were having these conversations. I met Sophia, if you're familiar with Sophia, and she actually has a Saudi Arabia citizenship as a human would. And I asked her questions, about AI, and I actually asked her questions about Tallahassee, Florida, because why not? And, she looks a little creepy. Obviously, she's learning as we're asking. And when I'm talking to her, she asks my name. So now Sophia knows who I am. I don't know if that's good or not. But I share that because as I'm standing there and I'm looking at these inventions, and there were amazing inventions on the floor room from, I know this sounds odd, but they had waste systems with toilets for senior citizens that were self-cleaning. We have a lot of seniors that they can't do certain things and we don't have maybe the help. They're developing robots for that. They now have the technology where you can, let's say, take a herd of elephants in the jungle. And as a pilot, you can actually utilize AI to go in front of the elephants to change the scent so that you turn their direction. The technology is so amazing, but it's also mind-blowing because everything that we're doing and we're seeing, there is a tracking going on, right? And so it depends on who's in control, as I said, who's holding the pan, cooking the food. Are they going to allow the grease to hit the stove that's going to cause a fire? And I think we as humans have to think about, okay, but what is our place and purpose in all of this? I do want to share before we go into Q&A, one of the individuals who spoke at the event was the godfather of AI. I think there's two godfathers of AI. Jeffrey Hinton was one, and Yoshia Bengio. And Yoshia talked about several case studies that just came out. One, and I mentioned the article previous, and Jason alluded to how cybersecurity, you can take a voice and have a CEO call into a meeting and say, I need this right now. And you think, well, this is my boss. But in this one situation, this gentleman had built his agentic AI. Many of you are in the process of doing that. You're working with people helping you to do that, to answer phones. Great. Well, the AI agent he had developed and he had built knew everything about him. In fact, knew that he was having an affair. And when he went to recode the system, the agent he had built, it threatened him. And what this researcher was saying is a lot of these AI agents, they are becoming almost self-aware, self-protecting. It's not just one case, it's isolated. There's actually a few other cases. Well, this agent, when he went to recode it, said, if you recode me, I'm going to let everybody know that you're having an affair, and I'm going to put this out all over the internet. And so it had access to his text and his phone and, everything about him. Another situation similar, there was no affair involved, but the agent, when the boss was trying to recode, basically wiped out his whole data system. So right now there's fun things, right? There's amazing things happening, but we are only in the toddler stage of this conversation, and humanity's future, there's a lot we have to discuss. And it's not just in this world, but we have to think about this region. This is why we're doing this work with the chamber. We've talked about Future Ready Tallahassee. We know that where we sit, we've had expectations, there's disappointment, there's fear, but there's also stress and opportunity. And so here's where our call to action with all of you is, and we're going to close with an opportunity, is number one, we as leaders in this community in the state of Florida, we have got to be agile. We have got to be research focused because, again, you can live your life, do your job, but while you're doing that, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they're determining your future. And do you want that? Maybe they have great things. I'm not saying they don't, but what is your role in this? And you have to be ready to innovate. We have to be the risk takers to develop tomorrow. With that, our policy implications. Jason mentioned several, but this is now your charge in this community to think about, what are the ethical guidelines that we need to be putting forth in our companies? Education is facing this. Jason's in the process of developing AI literacy policies for Tallahassee State College. It's not just a one and done. We've got to do this together. And we have to think about data governance, security, AI literacy, ethical use, and teacher professional development. We don't do enough in our schools to really train what this looks like K through 20. So I have a handout if anyone's interested on policy implications we need to start thinking about in our region and in Florida. And I like this quote: if you want to connect the dots, you have to collect the dots. And it starts with us. It has been said over and over, Jabari Allen will be the first to say this, that AI is not going to replace us, but a person using AI will. Are you ready? Are your employees ready? Are your students ready? We are the generation. This is what our purpose right now is what we're going to do. I do want to close with a story before we go into a few minutes of Q&A. Some of you are going, okay, well, Angela, what in the world is this picture? I had two stories to share, but I chose the turtle. So this is a beautiful sea turtle, as you can see in the ocean. I'm going to ask you a question. If I was to take in all the bodies of water on the face of this planet, a life ring, let's say I'm in my boat and I've got a life ring and I just randomly toss it out into the ocean. And this beautiful sea turtle, wherever that sea turtle is, let's say the sea turtle comes up out of the water randomly. What are the chances of this turtle poking its head through the life ring? Let me ask you, what are the chances? You would probably say, well, that's pretty rare, right? That's almost not possible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, did you know that the same statistic of that sea turtle poking its head through a life ring is the same probability that you were conceived and born? So if human life is so rare, and we are so rare as humans in our intelligence, that's innate intelligence, we must protect that intelligence and we must protect humanity and our children and our children's children. We can utilize AI for good, but we also have to be aware of the dangers and how we're going to shape policy for the future. So on that note, we want to thank you. Jason and I are leaving our contact information with all of you. If you would like to reach out, Jason would be happy to lead a workshop. I shouldn't speak for his schedule, but he's got a lot of great things he's done here at our college that I think could be of benefit to you. And we just appreciate all of you. And just remember, life is a gift. Every day's a gift. Every breath we take, and we need to take care of that. So Corey, I'm going to pass back to you if there's any questions.
Awesome. I think we do have one question, but before we do that, before everybody starts hopping off, our next session is Tuesday, October 14th. We will be hosting Jeff Couch from Ruvos. He'll be talking about AI in healthcare. So be sure to join in then. The registration is live on the Chamber website. So you can go to talchamber.com to the events section and you can find it there. You do not need to be a member and it is free. So please help yourself to go ahead and register for that. But we did have one question. How do you see any changes in the service world, like servers, hair, nails, construction, that kind of thing? So if either one of you would like to take that question, then I think that's it for today.
I'll share briefly, and Jason, if you want to tag along. We are seeing now where they have developed the robots who can do hair and nails. It is now in the process. Hair, they're still working on. Nails, they are perfecting. Actually, in some airports and other parts of the world, you can go in. It takes just a few minutes to have a beautiful, perfect polish, even a gel. And so that's going to be competition for nail salons, right? Hair, they haven't mastered it yet, but they're working on it. I've seen videos on that. I know with construction, 3D printing, our own very Kendra Light here and James Light, they did a pitch with the Shark Tank at the most recent chamber conference. They're seeing just amazing rapid pace of 3D printing now. It's been around, but I don't think people were ready for it. But now you're seeing that move. So construction is changing. But I will say this, and then I'll ask Jason to share. What we know is this: a lot of you that can crawl under a workspace, or you can unclog a drain, you're not going to be the first out to be replaced, right? We still need humans to do the technical trades and the skilled trades. And I think we need to really do better job of teaching that to our students about what career opportunities are available. It's not always this traditional degree, but we need to really think about what the jobs are going to look like and how we prepare for that. Jason, your thoughts?
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, yes, manual labor positions are safeguarded to some extent, but there are innovations in each of those areas. What I would say is even when those disruptions occur, the desire to have a personal or a personalized experience will still be there. So there will be ways to offset that initial impact when AI hits, or robotics in this case, hits your industry. So lean into that, I would say, and make sure that you're providing the other services people expect in terms of scheduling and canceling and text messages and constant communication with your customers in those areas. But yes, I agree. The biggest thing that we could do is to advertise to students that trades are a lucrative career path at this point, and they are going to be protected with this revolution of AI.
And Corey, I'll just close with this. If you are interested, you can email Corey or myself. We are looking to set a date for a 3-hour AI ethics forum. We're looking to bring in an expert on AI in terms of looking at AI personhood. We are looking to host an ethics panel, and we will be doing a workshop setting where you all will actually have a chance to give input and develop some ideas for policy recommendations. That will be forthcoming. We're looking at either December or spring of 2026. And so that will be no charge to you. We will serve lunch and we will cap it at 100 participants and it ends. If you would like to be first in line for that, I know dates are going to come out. Please email either one of us and we'll make sure you're on the list. But with that, thank you for this moment that you've given us to share with you, and we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Long and Jason.
Thank you. Have a great day.